WeatherScope.
Well, we've got some winter storm warnings tonight, but they're not in Vermont. They're not in Canada.
Nope.
They're not in the Rocky Mountains. North Carolina, Tennessee, and the Virginias.
Yeah, just nasty out there.
Welcome to WeatherScope. I'm Dave Schwartz.
And I'm Jeff Morrow. In fact, some roads, we don't say this often, but some roads are impassable, folks. They are shut down in North Carolina. The Asheville area hit hard. This is Polk County, North Carolina, and really, to be honest, these shots were taken about mid-afternoon, and it snowed a lot after this was taken. Look at the trucks all jackknifed there on the interstate. Now, this could have been 26 or I-40. They both were shut down at times today, and I think some of 40 is still shut down west of Asheville. Barco, North Carolina, this is not an interstate. This is 168 between Norfolk and the Outer Banks, the main artery there, to get down to the Outer Banks, and it rained lightly early in the day, and then the wind and the rain really picked up as we headed through this evening. And I was just telling Dave before we got on the air here that I noticed up here at Langley Field, just north of Norfolk proper, over 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts. Now, there might have been an embedded thunderstorm in there too, but there's a very strong easterly gradient, if you will, or difference in pressure between a high to the north and this storm, which is very easy to pick out on our satellite radar composite. A little hook to it here, a little comma shape. That is the storm. There's the high. There's the low, the center of the low pressure at the surface. Just checking some of the pressures, lowest is probably out there toward Hatteras. But the wind still out of the southeast at Hatteras. I think the warm front has gone on by. Temperatures in the mid-50s. But the low can't be that far behind. So the low in eastern North Carolina, but boy, the flow around that just driving the moisture back up into the mountains. That's where the air was cold enough to support the heavy, wet snow. And it's been sticking to everything. Over 2 feet of it in some cases, bringing down trees and power lines. A lot of folks without power from eastern Tennessee, around the Asheville area, North Carolina, up into West Virginia. It's a mess. And the crews, in some cases, aren't even out trying to fix the power at this point because the roads are impassable. That's how bad it is. Gale warnings up along the coast. Winds offshore here in South Carolina, soon to be offshore in North Carolina overnight, but onshore as you head farther north. And because of that, there could be some coastal flooding, particularly from the Jersey Shore down to the Outer Banks at the times of high tide, which should be a little bit later on during the overnight hours. Pretty easy to pick out the spin when you look at the radar here of our moisture. Looks like the Outer Banks, you're just about ready to kind of dry up a little bit. There'll be showers overnight. Look at all that moisture just driving back still into northeast Tennessee up toward the Tri-Cities. travel along Interstate 81 has got to be an absolute nightmare. I have not heard that that road is closed yet, but boy, it has got to be a mess. And what's this out here in West Virginia? I'm hoping that that's just some sleet returns and not real heavy snow. But we have had reports of over 2 feet of snow there. And again, lightening up somewhat as we head up into the Poconos, but the damage in the central Appalachians has already been done. Let's talk about the rest of the nation now. Here's Dave.
Well, Jeff, before we do that, that radar we just looked at in West Virginia may just be some heavy snow. Charleston, West Virginia is reporting moderate snow along with moderate rain, so it's very sloppy out there in West Virginia. Elsewhere in the nation tonight, there's heavy fog in parts of the upper Midwest and just plain old cold. Here in Portland, when the sun came up, oh, folks taking the ferry were bundling up. Ooh, boy, that is frozen slush, 3 degrees. And as that Arctic air sits over the relatively warmer water, Arctic sea smoke, or that's what we call it. It's a form of sea fog. It's called Arctic sea smoke. Am I right? It is a form of sea fog. Arctic sea smoke. It's kind of eerie looking. Clear skies, and there's this smoky fog hanging around. You see that over the Great Lakes or some of the Lake Wobegon in Minnesota, for example, when it gets really cold. Today was not one of those really cold days. Aside from northern New England, temperatures were averaging, except near this storm, and averaging or exceeding averages today. We had a record high temperature set in Salt Lake City, a balmy 56 degrees. Hastings, Nebraska with a record high. Salina, Kansas with a record high up near 60 today. This west to east flow now that is setting up is also helping us keep this storm, helping Mother Nature keep that from overrunning the Arctic air here in the Northeast. The flow more west to east this time, so we believe that this will just scoot out before it does any damage. The cold air is there, but we don't believe that the moisture will get in. Look at this yellow. Patches of yellow, dense fog are being reported in Toledo, in Kokomo, Rockford, Illinois, Des Moines, Rochester, Minnesota. This area is going to expand, and aside from the havoc that's being wreaked by the heavy snow here in the Appalachians and the wind and possible coastal flooding along the Mid-Atlantic and New England coast, perhaps the fog is going to be the biggest story for you and me as we head out here on Wednesday morning. Not so in the Northeast. There'll be enough clouds or wind to see to it that fog is not a problem. But if you're in New York City, Philly, that wind will be mixed